Wall Street is buying every house, and corporations are colluding to keep you out of home ownership. That's what I've been hearing, but unfortunately, it's a myth. People really want to believe that big investors are buying up all of the single family homes, so much so that people don't want to hear evidence to the contrary. They think I'm a shill for Blackstone, but I don't work for Blackstone. I work for Redfin, and Redfin makes its money helping regular people, people who intend to live in the home, buy homes. If it was true that Wall Street was buying all the single family homes and stopping regular people from becoming homeowners, I would say that. I would say that all day long. But it's not true, and I have no reason to lie to you. By the end of this video, you will know exactly who is preventing you from becoming a homeowner, and it's a group that you probably haven't expected. Let's run through the numbers. Investors bought 18% of homes in the last quarter of 2025, which is up from the level in the year 2000 at 7%, but down from the peak in 2022 of 21%. Now, this investor share includes all types of investors, including mom and pop investors. Those are people who maybe own their primary home and bought another investment property to make some money on the side. They constitute the largest share of investor purchases. Many people decided to become investors during the pandemic when interest rates hit record lows. Money was cheap, and people figured buying up real estate was a good way to make money off of cheap money. But now interest rates are much higher, and investment activity has fallen as a result. So that's who's buying homes, but who owns homes? About 65% of all homes are owned by owner-occupants. That's regular people who bought the home and live in the home themselves. About 22% are owned by small mom and pop investors. They own less than 10 homes and they rent them out or flip them to make money. And then there are mid-size investors who own less than 100 homes. They account for about 6% of the homes owned. You have large institutional investors who own 100 properties or more. They account for 3% or less of the homes owned. And then once you get to these big Wall Street mega investors who own more than 1,000 homes, they only account for less than 1% of all homes owned. And yet that's the group that everyone is blaming for the housing affordability crisis. So when you hear somebody saying that BlackRock is buying all the homes, it's just not true. In fact, BlackRock primarily invests in mortgage-backed securities and commercial real estates. They don't buy single-family homes. People might be thinking of Blackstone. Blackstone does buy single-family homes, and they bought Invitation Homes, which is a company that builds to rent single-family homes. But even a company like Blackstone accounts for less than 1% of all homes owned in the United States. But that's not to say that investors are reshaping real estate markets. In Miami, 32% of homes sold in the last quarter of 2025 went to investors. In Anaheim, it was 26%, San Francisco, 25%, and Cleveland, 25%. Nationally, it's 18%, but in these specific cities, investors are buying nearly 1 in 3 homes. But investors are actually pulling back. In Florida, like I discussed in my other video, insurance costs are increasing, rents are falling, and inventory is rising. It's not exactly a safe haven for investors. So if it's not investors that are preventing you from owning a home affordably, what is the culprit? The real problem is that America is short 4 million homes. That's according to a study from Freddie Mac. Why are we short so many homes? Well, it comes down to local control and NIMBYism. What does that mean? Well, local control means that communities decide how much housing is built in them. But these people who are deciding how much housing gets built are often homeowners who see no reason to gain from building more housing. They're already set. They already own homes. So these homeowners develop an attitude called NIMBYism. That means not in my backyard. Oftentimes, homeowners get scared when new apartment buildings go up. They worry about who's going to move into them. They worry that lower income people might move in and how that might change the neighborhood. They worry that higher income people might move in and how that might change the neighborhood too. They just worry about everything like traffic or shadows. There's really a super long list of what NIMBYs claim to care about. But at the end of the day, these NIMBYs prevent housing from getting built. They show up at their city council meetings and they complain and complain and complain about plans to build new housing. So new housing development gets stalled or stopped entirely, housing doesn't get built, and without that new supply, home prices go up and rents go up. What's so tragic about this is that these NIMBYs who prevent housing from getting built are often homeowners themselves. They have fixed rate mortgages, so much of their housing costs are fixed. They don't benefit from new housing going in, but by blocking this new housing, they make housing more expensive for anybody who doesn't currently own a home. That means renters, that means younger people, that means people who don't currently live in their neighborhoods but would like to move in are all set up to have higher housing costs because of the choices of people who are already set because they're already homeowners. And this creates a housing caste system. If you already own a home, the system protects your property value. But if you don't own a home, you're locked out. So everyone's looking around like, who did this? And they're pointing to Wall Street because Wall Street is an easy villain, but really they should be pointing to that homeowner who's owned their home since the pandemic. 60% of existing mortgages are at a rate below 4% for a 30-year fixed rate. The prevailing rate for home buyers right now is over 6%. That's a big gap between what people who already own homes have to pay for housing and people who would like to become homeowners have to pay for housing. These homeowners who have 3% mortgage rates have almost no reason to sell because if they sold and they bought again, they would have to buy again at these higher rates and pay thousands of dollars more each month to live in a home at the same price. So these phenomena of high interest rates, lack of inventory, homeowners locked into low mortgage rates, and NIMBYism is what's preventing people from becoming homeowners. It's keeping home ownership out of reach for everyday people. So the biggest competitor for first-time homebuyers isn't Wall Street. It's the homeowner who's sitting comfortably with their 3% mortgage rate, stopping new housing from getting built, and refusing to sell their home to another buyer. I don't want to make it sound like investors aren't a thing, that they're not affecting the market, but it's not these Wall Street investors that are the big players. It's these smaller investors that make up the largest share. And they're going after a specific kind of home. Investors tend to target low-priced homes. That's 24% of the types of homes that investors are buying. Next is high-price homes at 17%, and then mid-priced homes account for 13% of what investors are going after. Investors also tend to prefer multifamily properties to single-family properties. They can get more renters that way and have economies of scale. But investors aren't just buying up existing homes, they're also developing new properties, which adds to the housing supply. Corporations also like manufactured home parks, like trailer parks. Currently, there are policies that prevent everyday people from buying manufactured homes and building them themselves. So this is a place where investors do have an advantage because they can navigate those regulations better than a small-time investor. But for some reason, people seem to think that these large investors are buying up single-family homes in their neighborhood, but the data shows it's just not true. So if these big institutional Wall Street investors aren't actually buying up all of the homes and they're not the ones that are keeping housing unaffordable, why does this myth persist? Well, it's just an easy target. It's easy to point to Wall Street and say that they are the source of your problems. People don't want to believe that their next door neighbor is actually the investor who's buying up a couple of properties and preventing first-time home buyers from owning them. People don't want to believe that older homeowners who have record low mortgage rates, who bought homes back when prices were cheap, are the reason why new housing isn't getting developed because of their NIMBY attitudes. And politicians take advantage of this myth. Right now, the Road to Housing Act is moving through Congress, and it includes a ban on institutional investors. It bans them not only from buying homes, but even from building homes. And when investors buy homes, they don't just sit vacant. Renters live in them. So if you ban investors from building or owning single-family homes, you're effectively banning renters from living in those homes. And this creates a lot of inequalities. The bill is focused on single family homes, and in the United States, neighborhoods are segregated into single family neighborhoods and multifamily neighborhoods. The single family neighborhoods tend to be more affluent, they tend to have better schools and better amenities. They tend to be more white as well. So if you ban investors from owning homes in single family neighborhoods, you can effectively ban renters from living in those neighborhoods. Those families are going to be renters who may not be able to own a home because they don't have wealth for the down payment or they don't have credit scores high enough to qualify for a mortgage. So if you prevent those renters from moving in, you reinforce income segregation and you reinforce racial segregation. And my conspiracy theory is that that is really what's at the root of this. NIMBY homeowners don't want to see their neighborhoods change. And oftentimes that's a dog whistle for not wanting their neighborhoods to diversify. They don't want to live next door to lower income people or people of color or people who haven't traditionally lived in their neighborhoods. So if they ban investors from buying single family homes in their neighborhood, they can prevent these types of people from moving in. And that might seem like a conspiracy theory that these homeowners are trying to keep their neighborhoods segregated. But when you look at the history of home ownership in America, as I discussed in my video on the history of Black home ownership in America, laws have often been used to keep neighborhoods segregated. And unfortunately, this bill is probably going to reinforce that. Now, there are some good things in this bill. Like, there's a part that makes it easier for people to build manufactured homes, which have also traditionally been stigmatized. So I hope this bill gets passed, but I hope they take out the part about banning institutional investors, because it doesn't do anyone any good, and it actually could hurt renters, who also have housing costs that are becoming more and more unaffordable. I'm Daryl Fairweather, Redfin's chief economist and also author. If you'd like to learn more about how the housing market is changing, follow for more, like this video, and stick around for the next video.